towards the one, the perfection of love, harmony, and beauty, the only being, united with all the illuminated souls who form the embodiment of the Master, the Spirit of Guidance. So welcome, friends, to our healing service tutorial. This will not be a comprehensive video, but at least a beginning to help orient and give some beginning instructions about performing the healing service and working with healing energies, prayers, and the quality of presence and magnetism for the healer. It is understood, of course, that God is the only healer, and that we, as the conductors, as those loving, compassionate, sympathetic beings who are praying for and sending healing energy for those in need, are doing our best to be channels for that energy, power, and healing magnetism of God. So we try to make ourselves as clean and available as possible to allow the healing power and presence to flow through us to where it can be of benefit in the world. Okay, so I'd like to start with sharing several passages from Piro Murshid Inayat Khan and from the Shafayat Manual that is a bunch of instructions and perspectives about healing that might help us orient ourselves towards this practice. To be a healer, in the big sense of the word, a gift is necessary, the gift of natural qualification for doing the healing work. But at the same time, a murid, which is an initiated student on the Sufi path, a murid must remember that every murid, more or less, is a healer. Everyone working for humanity, and to a greater degree, every mystic is a healer. Whoever is living in the presence of God must reflect the presence of God. So that includes every single one of you, all of us, yes? Okay, in sending thoughts to a distance, so this is for doing the absent healing ritual or for doing any kind of healing blessings for someone who is not physically present with you. In sending thoughts to a distance, three things are necessary. 1, faith in the theory. 2, self-confidence, meaning confidence in one's own power, confidence in the real self, in the divine breath. More failures come from insufficient confidence in oneself than from overconfidence. 3, power of concentration. In healing, we must lose ourselves in the consciousness of the self of God. The whole thing is to forget our little self. This is the main principle of the healing work. Realize the phrase in Salat, in the prayer Salat, let the star of the divine light shining in thy heart be reflected in the hearts of thy devotees. Use this as a meditation in order to develop the attitude of a spiritual healer. Say it often in the day and before giving a healing treatment. I'll say the phrase again. Let the star of the divine light shining in thy heart be reflected in the hearts of thy devotees. For absent treatment, for absent healing, the best plan is to sit down in your room, still your mind, realize that you are in touch with the great, inexhaustible source of life. Make a mental picture of the patient, of the person that you're sending healing to. Using a photo may be helpful. Do not think of the disease of the patient. Do not think of the disease of the patient. Think of him or her as being perfectly well. Think of the divine spark in him or her. Then make yourself very still and let the current of healing travel to the patient on the channel of the thought you have made. Okay, so those are some very fundamental important orientations about the selflessness, the confidence, the focus, the concentration, the power, the intention, how we're shaping our vision, our thoughts, and how we are allowing that energy and that God self to flow through us to be of benefit. Yeah? Okay. So, in response to some of your initial questions and interests, there are expressions of healing, prayers, practices, ceremonies, exercises in every spiritual tradition I'm aware of. That doesn't mean every spiritual tradition, but every one that I'm aware of. And there will be similarities and differences between them. And part of what we do in Sufism is that we integrate, we welcome, we celebrate, and we utilize the blessings, the gems, the shining tools in each of the faith traditions as we recognize and experience them. And we can weave them in harmony with respect and reverence and utilize what is powerful and available to us. So, for each healer, for each person who is providing spiritual healing and functioning in this way, all of you, each of you, are welcome to integrate and utilize the tools, the perspectives, the exercises that are useful for you, that resonate with your heart, with your energy, with your thoughts, your awareness, your intentions, your highest ideals, your integrity, and your own lived experience. So please feel entirely welcome, blessed, supported, and encouraged to utilize what is available to you. Well, we could do some extensive study on comparisons of here's how it's done in this way, and here's a contradictory, sometimes very contradictory approach, and here are ways that some practices, traditions, modalities will say you absolutely have to do it this way, and it's entirely wrong and detrimental to do it a different way. That I don't actually believe those things in myself, that we each find our own way, and each system, each modality, each practice that has made itself known and available to humanity is providing a benefit to the best of its ability. So whatever forms of healing practice you find useful and effective are true and legitimate and valid. And if you find things that are contradictory or that I present that are different or that are not just different, incongruent with something that you already know and experience to be true in your own practice, I encourage you to work with what you know, use the skills that you have, be of benefit in whatever ways you can. And part of the Sufi path is being open to and curious about new perspectives, being willing to re-examine our beliefs, our habits, our patterns, that we don't want to be fixed in any of the things that, even if we know them to be useful, it is of benefit to be curious, open, to be willing to adjust, to learn new things, to try something different, and to question even and maybe especially codified, concretized beliefs that we're holding. So I encourage you to be flexible and open to something new. Okay, then what parts of the healing service are non-negotiable? Do you absolutely have to keep entirely intact as in the form and with the detailed specifics that were given? I will say absolutely none of them. There is absolutely nothing that you have to keep exactly as it is. And I will contradict myself immediately by saying all of them. Keep all of them completely intact and hold to them as loyally as you can. No, it's somewhere in between. Each of the things, it's like if you start out with a recipe, that I do this all the time. Any recipe book I've ever had, I can look up any recipe and immediately start making substitutions and go, well, I don't have that, so what can I use instead? Or I would like to use more of that or less of that, or I'm allergic to that, or whatever it is. And by the time the recipe is prepared, it might have absolutely no resemblance to where it started, or it might be exactly perfect, even though I used 3 different substitutions, and it's fine. So what I'm trying to give you right now is the healing service as I am currently holding it in Surati Anayat, that includes a lot of the traditional instructions that Piro Murshid Inayat Khan gave, and also some innovations, some integrating of different perspectives and practices, and then everything is up to whoever is performing the service to make it work. That if there's anything in here that is uncomfortable, unavailable, that doesn't resonate for you, then you have my blessing to make adjustments according to your own need. Okay. So I want to introduce you to a couple of tools that I have here. One of them is incense, because Murshid said to have incense on the altar. So I do have a stick of incense here. And this is not necessarily important, but I like to use Nag Champa. Why? Because it's traditional, because it's an Indian incense, because it is used for meditation and prayer. And I have not found the source for this, but I believe that Murshid made some reference to Nag Champa and its particular spiritual benefits. So I use Nag Champa. You can use whatever you want. And it's important if you have other people that are in the room with you when you're doing the healing service. I like to check with people to make sure that people are comfortable with incense, and if they're not, or if they're comfortable with a little bit, I might light the incense for a couple seconds and then put it out. Or if I know people are particularly sensitive, I might light a flame and just pass the incense over the flame, but not actually burn it, so that there's a sense of conveying the intention of the incense without causing discomfort for people. It feels kind of counterintuitive to do something in a healing service that causes people discomfort, right? So maybe don't do that. Okay, I also, because I have been including some music, and the way that Razia, who is the Mu'alima, the current person in charge of the Healing Collective in Surati Anayat, has been including a lot of music. So I brought a Shruti box that is useful for being able to chant with, especially if you are not a musician or if you are not comfortable playing any other instruments. But the Shruti box can give you a nice foundation of sound that you can sing with, or even just speak over the top of, that adds a musical vibration. So for right now, I have my Shruti box set with E and A are the two notes that I have open on my Shruti box, E and A, and it sounds like this. And I'm just pumping this to make a nice consistent sound. And so if you have access to something like this that can include the vibration of music in your service, you are welcome to do that. When you hear that noise over here, that's what I'm doing. Shruti box. Okay. Other things that you see on the altar are all things that Murshid said to include in a healing service, and with a couple innovations that we have been doing in Surati Anayat, and that Razia has been holding as part of her concentration of the healing service. So for setting up the altar, Murshid said to use a yellow cloth. And he also said that it should have the heart with wings. And there are some healing practitioners and conductors in the Anayati Sufi lineage streams that say that a healing conductor has to embroider the heart with wings on the altar cloth by hand, and that's part of the practice. I have not come across a reference that says that Murshid said to do that, and I do not believe that Murshid would have instructed people to do some domestic handcraft as part of the spiritual practice. I cannot imagine Murshid sitting in a rocking chair embroidering a heart with wings on an altar cloth, though if someone finds an image of that, I would love to see it. So I do have an embroidered heart with wings on the altar that is gold on top of a yellow gold altar cloth. And that is the color, Murshid says, the color of the spirit and the color of happiness. So it is a vibrant, living color, and I feel like that's important, or he wouldn't have said to do that. Okay, also, he said that there should be amber, the stone, well, a stone, it's a resin. It's really a hard resin that is a calcified tree sap. I tried to say sap and tree at the same time and it said trap. That was very funny. So I have some amber beads on here that are holding that space that is for the magnetism of the earth. And amber is also a very sacred scent in a lot of spiritual practices and prayers, so a beautiful multi-purpose element on the altar. There's also magnetized water, and we are using 6 different cups of water that we are going to magnetize as part of the service, infusing them with our prayers and mantra and blessings. So each of those, and this is not part of what Murshid described, but this is right now an empty basin that will be receiving, welcoming all of these prayers in the form of water. He also said there should be fresh cut flowers. Sometimes I use potted flowers. So the last service that I led, I had a potted orchid that has flowers, but it wasn't cut. But he describes the cut flowers as being charged with the healing energies that really represent beauty and harmony and life, even though they're cut. But there's that. So I brought fresh cut flowers for today. And then the incense that is currently sitting here unlit, but I will light it when we start actually walking through the ritual itself. And the incense Murshid describes as representing the prayers that rise to God. So beautiful. Then this is the empty basin that I have on here for the purposes that I just described, but I'll say a little bit more. Also, at the very beginning, before you actually start the ritual, you need to get a list of the names that will be read as part of the ritual, and there should be no more than 10 names. And the reason for that, in my experience, is this. I don't think that Murshid explained why, but having a limited number helps us keep our concentration, that we can really be focusing our prayers, our intentions, and it doesn't get too long for us to get bored or for the names to start to blend together. But you can do less than 10 names. If you have less than 10, that's fine. So having the names written out ahead of time. Right now I have it sitting on the altar, but they wouldn't actually be sitting on the altar for the service itself. Now, it's important to let you know that the way that Murshid described the healing service, there were originally 3 people that are holding responsibility and leading the service together. And because of how the world is right now, we've been doing so many things online where there's just one person and there isn't a second or a third person to hold it together. So I'm showing you a form that just has me as the healing conductor, as the one person that is facilitating the service by myself. That was not the original intention, but it is possible and it does work. There is energy and magnetism that flows, but I will describe in brief. If there were 2 other people, the conductor, the main person who's officiating the ritual, is sitting on the opposite side, or it's at the head of the altar. So all of you out in Zoom land are representing, you are the congregation, the participants that are there to be a part of it, but you don't have an active part of actually doing anything with the physical implements of the ritual. You do have a job to do, which is breathing shafi and kafi throughout the entire thing. So there are some ways that we can include all of you more when we're interacting like this through the Zoom, internet, whatever. So I will be including you more than what Murshid described. The other 2 people are the assistant to the conductor, and this would be a person who would sit on this side of the altar, facing the altar. The assistant helps set up the altar and collects the names and reads the names as part of the service. So for most of the service, that person is just sitting quietly, tending to the energy of the ritual, but not doing anything active with anything here. The third person, this one is super fascinating. The third person is sitting to the left of the altar, also facing the altar. That person is silent throughout, does not help set up the altar, does not read the names. That person is purely holding the energy field of grounded concentration and presence. So that person you can think about as a battery, or yeah, probably a battery is the best word for it. So that person is simply concentrating, holding space, being a supportive, centered, focused energy holder for the conductor, for the service itself. So, three people. Right now, it's just me. And let's see, what else do I need to tell you before we start? Healing conductor, assistant. Oh, the word that Murshid used for that third person is the balance. The third person is the balance, holding the concentration. Okay, so for the participants throughout the whole thing, you are invited to breathe in Shafi and breathe out Kafi. And these two beautiful names of God are both aspects of healing, and Murshid describes them so many different ways. One of them is that he refers to them as God's healing power, light, love, joy, and peace. And traditionally, you'll hear that Shafi is the healer and Kafi is the medicine or the remedy. So those two things together, when you're breathing in Shafi, you're invited to feel that you are embodying the presence for the healing to flow through. And then Kafi is the exhalation, and it is radiating the qualities of healing that are needed in that moment, in that context. So breathing in Shafi, breathing out Kafi. One of the other ways that Murshid describes it, he says that Shafi is the healing spirit of God, the healing spirit of God. And Kafi is the all-pervading life of God, all-pervading life of God. Okay, so there's one practice that is recommended for the conductor, for the person who is leading the healing service. And this is 11 rhythmical breaths, breathing in Shafi and breathing out Kafi. 11 rhythmical breaths. And Murshid gave lots of instructions about how to do this breath concentration of Shafi and Kafi, but some main things are that he says that the breath should be rhythmical, meaning balanced, that the inhalation and exhalation are the same, that we want it to be a little bit longer, a little bit deeper, a little bit slower than your natural breath, but not to strain, that we want it to flow as naturally as possible, but amplifying and balancing these qualities within and through ourselves. So right now, I do encourage all of us, each of us, in our own rhythms, in our own space, to focus 11 rhythmical breaths of Shafi, Kafi. One other piece is that the Ya at the beginning is an invocation. So when you're just doing it as a silent breath concentration, you do not need to add Ya, that you're feeling and working with those energies and qualities that are already present within you. You don't need to call them up. You're just strengthening, harmonizing, working with them actively as they already exist within you. Okay, so 11 breaths, breathing in Shafi, breathing out Kafi. When you're complete, you can just gently release that practice and return to your natural breath without any particular concentration. It is important for each healing conductor to prepare oneself before starting the actual ceremony, to get yourself as centered and clear about your intentions, to let go of any stresses, distractions, to really invite yourself consciously to become that living, open, clear channel for the healing power to flow through you. Okay, so we're not going to put all of the names on here for today because I didn't want any particular names to land on this recording, but before starting the ritual, gather the 10 names that can be included on here. Murshid is very explicit in saying that it is important to get permission from each person to actually offer healing blessings for them. We do not send blessings and healing for people who did not ask for it and give explicit permission, because it is understood to be an intrusion on that person's sovereignty, that it is interfering with their process in their own life and their own spirit. So do not presume to know what is good or right or welcome for other people. Also, Murshid is very explicit in saying that this healing service is specifically and exclusively for human beings. It is not for your beloved pets that you are welcome to offer prayers and healing for, but not in this service. It is also important to note that it is for people who are still alive in a physical body. It is not for the souls of the departed. However, there is an exception that is made if you have people that you would like to offer prayers for that are not alive any longer, who have, especially if they have recently died. You can include them at the end of the names. They should be at the bottom of the set of 10 names, and you include a blessing of Ya Salamo, Ya Salamo, which is an invocation for peace in an ongoing way. And when we are using salam as a wazifa practice in our living embodied form, we say Ya Salam, ending with an When we offer the blessing of peace for a soul that is no longer in the body, we say Ya Salamo. That is an open, expansive, moving forward quality. Okay. So for this, I encourage you to stick with 10 names, human beings in living incarnate bodies who have given permission. There is also a space in this ceremony that if there are people who are not included on here or who have not given explicit permission, you can include them as a blessing after the formal part with the names. So there is a space and a little accommodation for that, but it's an exception, not the rule. Okay, let's see, where are we now? So I am going to light the incense, which happens before the formal ceremony begins, and I think we'll just leave it going today because we can. Again, Nakchampa. Lifting our prayers to God. Here, I'm going to bring it up to you so you can get a whiff of that. No candle. Okay. So this is after the names have been read. The conductor has done the practice, whatever practice is useful to get centered and grounded. And we begin with the invocation. And for the first invocation, we end up doing the invocation 3 times. For the first one, we concentrate intentionally and specifically on peace and unity for the whole creation. Peace and unity for the whole creation, towards the one, the perfection of love, harmony, and beauty, the only being, united with all the illuminated souls who form the embodiment of the Master, the Spirit of Guidance. And then we have a minute or two or three of silence. And I'm not going to allow a full minute right now, but I will allow a few breaths. So you can just attune to the silence that welcomes and reverberates the invocation that we just spoke. And then we have the first of Murshid's healing prayers, which I will put in the chat window for you. So the prayer Nayaz is not actually part of this service, but there are 3 different healing prayers. So here's the first one. O thou, whose nature is mercy and compassion, and whose being is all peace, Father, Creator, and Sustainer of our lives, send on the whole humanity thy peace, and unite us all in thy divine harmony. In the traditional healing service that Murshid offered, only the conductor says the prayers, but while we are holding things in this way, especially on Zooms and in internet land, I find it's really useful and beautiful to include people, to give people the text for the prayers and to invite them to either say them or read along, so that there's a more living quality about these prayers. Okay, so the next piece is a little bit weird. I'm not actually going to do it in its entirety, but Murshid says that the conductor should stand and invite all of this power and presence to flow through, and to put the right hand over the left. But while I am just seated and I don't want to stand, and because it feels more disruptive in this format, but being able to feel the flow of energy and power that moves between your hands, that is held within your hands. So probably many of you have some experience in Qigong or in some kind of energy, Reiki, any kind of healing modalities, where you can feel the living energy and the power between your hands. So the right hand is over the left, and I'm just going to take a couple of breaths to feel the energy that is flowing between and that I am holding. And there's really a sense of amplifying, of strengthening that quality, that living energy, so that I can direct it according to my will as part of this healing ceremony. So just taking a few breaths to feel the energy that flows between your hands. And this would, again, this would be done standing next to the altar or behind the altar for the conductor, but I'm going to stay seated for this. If it helps you, you might continue to concentrate on Shafi on the inhalation and Kafi on the exhalation. And now, while still standing, or at least embodying the quality and the energy of standing, if you're not physically standing, we'll say the invocation again. And this time, the concentration is on being used as a channel. Focus on being used as a channel as we say the invocation again. Towards the one, the perfection of love, harmony, and beauty, the only being, united with all the illuminated souls who form the embodiment of the Master, the Spirit of Guidance. Then we have another minute or 2 or 3 of silence. So you can continue holding that posture. It's still standing or feeling as if you are standing for a few more minutes. I'll just do a few breaths. And then while still standing, we have the second of the healing prayers. It's in the chat window for you now. So still standing or feeling like you're standing. O thou, the spirit of our souls, the master of our minds, and the controller of our bodies, we humbly offer ourselves to be used as the channels of thy love, light, and life, that we may be more able to serve thee and humanity. Amen. Now you can either be seated or relax into your seat. And now we weave in 6 different faith traditions, prayers, mantram, songs, intentions, and blessings for healing. And you could choose any faith traditions you want. You could choose any healing mantram and prayer that you want. And for today and my purposes, what I have been doing is weaving together 6 faith traditions, and I alternate between a song and a spoken prayer. Song, spoken prayer, song, spoken prayer. So in my experience, this keeps it vibrant. You don't get like lazy and complacent. It doesn't stick with one modality for too long for us to keep our concentration and enthusiasm for it. And so for each of these, what I'm going to be doing is holding one of these cups of water, and that we infuse the cup of water with the prayer that we are focusing on, so that we are magnetizing and energizing it with that prayer. And it is useful if you are using a video. I like to make things very visible so everyone in here can see this and concentrate on it and send energy and power and vitality into the water. And after we infuse this with one faith tradition of prayer or song, then we're going to pour it into the basin so that they all gather together, swirl together as a supercharged basin of healing energy symbolized through water. Okay, so for today, we're going to start with a pagan ditty that is something that, you know, in paganism, it weaves through all of the common traditions and spiritual practices of the peoples all over the world. In every culture, there has been some expression of paganism. So this feels like a good attunement to the qualities of nature and what is useful for all beings everywhere. So I'm putting the words in the chat for you. This one is in English, and we are going to start with singing this one. And again, concentrating on infusing, energizing, pouring all of this blessing and intention into this dish of water, magnetizing it from the pagan tradition. Here's a little song. We'll sing it through maybe 4 times. It's very short. I am a circle and I am healing you. You are a circle and you are healing me. Unite, be one. Unite, be as one. I am a circle and I am healing you. You are a circle and you are healing me. take this charged, magnetized, blessed water and pour it into this basin. I like to do it from a little bit high up so you can hear it splashing in there. Like adds to the beauty and delight of it. Okay, so there's one empty cup. Going on to the next one. So the next one is from Hinduism, and this is in honor of the god of Ayurvedic medicine, whose name is Dhanvantri. Dhanvantri. So I'll put the words for the mantra in the chat window. I'm just going to speak through it once, and then I will also include the translation of it. I feel like it's important to offer translations for things, that leaving things in their magical form because of the vibration of the mantra is beautiful, and I'm sure it has a particular effect, and it will mean more to all of the people who are participating if you can also hear what it means in a language that makes sense to your mind. So here's the translation first, and then we'll speak through the mantra in the Sanskrit. I bow to Lord Dhanvantri, the Lord with 4 hands, carrying a conch, a leech, and a pot of immortal nectar. In his heart shines a pleasing and brilliant blaze of light. The light is seen shining around his head and beautiful lotus eyes. His divine play destroys all disease like a blazing forest fire. So you're welcome to try to say the mantra with me in the Sanskrit, or you're welcome to just listen to it while we shine it into this glass of water. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Dhanvantaraye Amrita Kalasha Hastaya Savar Amaya Vanashaya Trilokya Nathaya Dhanvantri Maha Vishnave Namaha. Here's the translation again, so you can pour your healing energy and magnetism into the water. I bow to Lord Dhanvantri, the Lord with 4 hands, carrying a conch, a leech, and a pot of immortal nectar. In his heart shines a pleasing and brilliant blaze of light. The light is seen shining around his head and beautiful lotus eyes. His divine play destroys all disease like a blazing forest fire. And for Buddhism, we'll do the mantra of the medicine Buddha. We'll sing this one. And this one translates to Teyata Om is usually said to mean we begin with the sound Om, which is the universal source that encompasses everything that was, is, and will be. Bekkansé means healing. And we repeat Bekkansé, and then Maha Bekkansé. So Bekkansé, the first one, is said to be eliminating the pain of mind and body. The second Bekkansé is eliminating the pain of spiritual suffering. And then Maha Bekkansé, Maha means great, or the biggest form of Bekkansé, of healing. That is the greatest eliminator of all pain and suffering. And then Radsa Samudgate is the sovereign, it is the king of healing, whose wisdom is wide as the ocean, that no healing task is beyond Radsa Samudgate. And then Soha is the affirmation, and so it is the intention of solid, concretized intention. Okay, so we'll sing this one also. Did I already put it in here for you? I did. Okay. Teyata Om Bekkansé, Bekkansé, Maha Radza samagate soha. Pouring all of the magnetism, the energy, the vitality into this light. Teata om bekanse, bekanse, ma bekanse. Radza samagate soha. Teata om bekanse, bekanse, ma bekanse. Radza samagate soha. Teata om bekanse, bekanse, ma bekanse. Radza samagate soha. For Christianity, we'll do a spoken prayer. That is the prayer of St. Francis. Sending all of these intentions, healing magnetism into this glass of water. Lord, make me an instrument of your peace. Where there is hatred, let me sow love. Where there is injury, pardon. Where there is doubt, faith. Where there is despair, hope. Where there is darkness, light. Where there is sadness, joy. O Divine Master, grant that I may not so much seek to be consoled as to console, to be understood as to understand, to be loved as to love. For it is in giving that we receive, it is in pardoning that we are pardoned, and it is in dying that we are born to eternal life. Amen. For Judaism, we use a short healing prayer that is translated as, "Please God, please heal her." Ana Elna, Ana Elna, Ana Elna Refana finally, for the cups of charged water, we have for Islam the light prayer of the Prophet. And in our community, we go through this in a lot of different ways to help us understand it and make it useful. And for this one, we'll go through the English interpretation of it first, so you know what we're saying, and then we'll go through it just straight through with the Arabic, which will sound like a lot of Arabic. You can do it in different ways if you want to when you're leading this, and you can also use different forms, different prayers, different phrases that invoke this healing quality. Okay, so please God, place in my heart light, and in my tongue light, in my hearing light, in my seeing light, above me light, beneath me light, on my right side light, on my left side light, in front of me light, behind me light. Make for me light, make me into light. Place in my ego light, in my nerves light, in my flesh light, in my blood light, in my hair light, in my whole physical body light. Increase for me this light, increase this light, magnify this light, strengthen this light, give me light upon light. Allahumma ja'al fi qalbi nuran, wa fi lisani nuran, wa fi sam'i nuran, wa fi basari nuran, wa fawqi nuran, wa tahti nuran, wa an yamini nuran, wa an yasari nuran, wa ma'ami nuran, wa khalfi nuran, wa ja'alni nuran, wa ja'al li nuran, wa ja'al fi nafsi nuran, wa asabi nuran, wa lahmi nuran, wa dammi nuran, wa shari nuran, wa bashari nuran, azidni nuran, azidni nuran, azidni nuran, wa habli nuran ala nur. Amen. We'll say the invocation a third time. This time we concentrate on the stream of divine healing power flowing through us. Concentrating on the stream of divine healing power flowing through us towards the one, the perfection of love, harmony, and beauty, the only being, united with all the illuminated souls who form the embodiment of the Master, the Spirit of guidance. And we'll have a minute or two or three of silence, just a few breaths for right now. And we'll have the third of Murshid's healing prayers. I hope I did that right. O thou, the light of all souls, the life of all beings, the healer of hearts, all-sufficient and all-powerful God, the forgiver of our shortcomings, free us from all pain and suffering, and make us thy instruments, that we may in our turn free others from pain and suffering, and that we may impart to them thy light, thy life, thy joy, and thy peace. Amen. And now we come to the part where we're reading the names of those living embodied human beings who have given permission to have their names included in this ritual. And there is a very intentional pause with each of these where we are breathing in Shafi and Kafi through the whole thing. So any moment that you get distracted or notice something else happening in your awareness, just gently remind yourself to come back to breathing Shafi inhalation, breathing Kafi exhalation. So we read each of the names, and after each name, we have 5 breaths of Shafi Kafi. So the first name is read, and we breathe in Shafi, breathe out Kafi. Total of 5 breaths of Shafi Kafi. And the way that Murshid described it is that the conductor is holding the Shafi Kafi concentration. The assistant reads the first name, but only after the conductor says, okay, first name. 1 name is read, 5 breaths of Shafi Kafi. And then the assistant who's reading the names does not read the second name until the conductor indicates, okay, we're ready for the second name. So there's a very intentional holding of sending these healing blessings to each person. It's not reading a list to get through the list. It's holding each name with great intention and sending these blessings and healing energies to them. The second name is read. And 5 breaths, breathing in Shafi, breathing out Kafi. 5 breaths. Attuned, concentrating entirely on these energies of healing, God the healer, God the medicine. And when you're ready, a 3rd name is read. Breathing in Shafi, breathing out Kafi. 5 breaths. After all 10 names are read, with 5 full breaths of Shafi Kafi, then we offer this short prayer. O Thou, the healer of our bodies, hearts, and souls, by Thy mercy may they be healed, by Thy all-sufficient power of healing. Then if there are names that have not been spoken, you can include those in silence for 5 breaths of Shafi and Kafi. Again, that can be either because there were more than 10 people or because there are people who did not give permission, or those that are no longer in the body, or for whatever reasons. Or maybe there's a space for like all those who are suffering. So 5 breaths of Shafi Kafi for all of the names that have not been spoken aloud as part of that 10. And then everyone either stands or feels the quality of standing for this small blessing. May all these be healed by Thine all-pervading power of healing. And then while still standing or feeling the quality of standing, we end with the prayer Khatum that is going into the chat window for you. O Thou, who art the perfection of love, harmony, and beauty, the Lord of heaven and earth, open our hearts that we may hear Thy voice, which constantly cometh from within. Disclose to us Thy divine light, which is hidden in our souls, that we may know and understand life better. Most merciful and compassionate God, give us Thy great goodness. Teach us Thy loving forgiveness. Raise us above the distinctions and differences which divide. Send us the peace of thy divine Spirit, and unite us all in thy perfect being. Amen. Okay, thank you, friends. So, answering some of your questions and trying to do a thorough job so you have this. Um, is the service the same or different each time? For most healing conductors, the service is exactly the same each time. That you have the rhythm, the outline, the instructions that Murshid gave, and the only thing that would be different is the names that are on the list. However, because this service that we just went through is an integration, a weaving together of a few different things, it can be different every time. And the prayers and the songs and the mantram that we used for energizing the water, um, they're ones that some of them Razia chose as the Mu'alima of the Healing Collective and Surati Anayat. Some of them I chose different ones. I also will sometimes choose different melodies for the same healing prayer. And even today in this tutorial, I wasn't sure which melody I was going to do for the Medicine Buddha or for the Ana Elna, and I chose those particular melodies in the moment. So those things can be different each time if you wish, and you can choose different prayers, phrases, songs from each of those faith traditions. I encourage you to have a selection of different faith traditions. I chose 6 different faith traditions because that is the number of religions that Murshid put on the Universal Worship Service altar. And so it feels important to me to aim toward his intentions as much as I can. But it doesn't have to be 6. Sometimes I've done the healing service with Razia when she'll have 3 or 4 faith traditions, not 6. So you can work with that in whatever way is useful for you. The different traditions. Who can do the service? When Murshid was giving instructions and gave very specific guidance about what to do and who could do it, he was very clear that people need to be trained and initiated as healing conductors. That was the phrase that he used for a conductor of the healing service, is somebody who has prepared him, her, themselves to be an effective channel for the healing power of God to flow through in a good, powerful, balanced, clean, strong way, and to varying degrees. There are so healing conductors are the people that Murshid said could do the healing service. Any of you who feel inspired to offer this service, to function in this way, I encourage you to work with it in the way that is in integrity with your own being. That it is important for us to recognize and work respectfully with the existing systems and expectations that support and strengthen and harmonize and bring great integrity to our own work. And it is also important, in my estimation, not to get bogged down or to be restricted by external formal systems that may or may not be necessary for your work in the world. So both and. I'm providing this, doing this recording and this instructional tutorial so that you can take this and use it. So please, with my blessing, take this and use it. And work with these healing energies as much as is right and good for you. Try to do so with as much integrity and emptiness of self as possible. So then, if any of you are feeling an inspiration, a longing for more formal acknowledgement, training, empowerment, the initiations as healing conductors to be able to do this in the way that Murshid suggested, please talk with me. I'm happy to support you, offer you what I can, and or talk with someone else. There are a lot of people in the world who can offer trainings and initiations and empowerments and blessings. So do what you can, seek out and ask for the resources that support you in doing as as much of that good work as you can. There goes my Shruti box. Sorry about that. Okay. What do I do with the water? What do you do with the water? I don't know what you'll do with the water. What I do with it is I give it to the earth. That I take it out and give it to onto the dirt, the ground, not concrete. I don't pour it down the sink. I have sometimes we'll take it and water house plants with it. But giving it to the earth directly, taking it outside and pouring it on the ground, watering a tree or some other plants with it, feels like a good continuation of the blessings. And also, she, the earth mama, welcomes all the water that we want to share with her. That's what I do with it. What do you wear? Murshid gave different instructions about what to wear. I deliberately wore a light color today because it feels like a good bright emptiness of self and a good color or non-color for welcoming and allowing blessings to flow through. I also put on a purple mantle, which is the color of spirituality and the soul and intuition. But that was just my personal choice today. I would say wear whatever feels comfortable, intentional, that allows you to invite and channel the healing powers that are available to you. And I encourage you, out of respect for the tradition, for Murshid's sincerity and elegance, try not to show up to do a healing service wearing stained clothes and torn up jeans. Like, show up with respect and intention. Wear whatever colors you wish or whatever forms you wish. I liked Yochanan's outfit today. I think that answered your questions. I'm going to pause the recording again and see if there's anything else before we close for today.